Hi everyone, I'm Cindy. I'm a children's librarian here at the Fargo Public Library, and I am super excited to welcome a very special guest to the library who has a very unusual job. Now, you may have heard that our theme for our summer reading program is Imagine Your Story. Well, when I came across local storm chaser Ryan Mauk's story, I was fascinated and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn about how storm chasing works and what kinds of experiences he had. So I asked Ryan to come and join us here. But I also wondered if, when he was a little boy, if he imagined his story would turn out chasing tornadoes. So let's ask him. Welcome, Ryan. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So when you were a child, then and people would ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Did you tell them that you wanted to chase tornadoes or storms?
Not exclusively, no.
Okay.
I guess I for a while I wanted to be maybe a meteorologist, just because ever since I was 5 years old, I was just fascinated by them, and also scared. For good reason. But I remember being, 5 or 6 years old at the after-school daycare center that I'd be until my mom got off work. And a couple times there was a tornado warning. They'd bring all the kids in the basement, and I'd be trying to crawl through the teacher's arms like, I want to see it, I want to see it, and all sorts of great books that I actually probably checked out here from the Fargo Public Library years back about weather and tornadoes, and then also, growing up, seeing some pictures that were taken within my family of some tornadoes, kind of historic tornadoes back in the day. So I've had, I never thought I'd actually do this, I guess. This profession just kind of was something I stumbled upon. Sure. Years later, yeah.
Okay, so this isn't the only thing you do.
No, right, yeah, this is not my main job. My main job is I'm a critical care registered nurse at an ICU in Fargo. Okay. So I work full-time with all sorts of critically ill people.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the beauty of, things like storm chasing, or in my case, I like to write. I mean, you can do lots of things at once. You're not just stuck in one profession necessarily.
Right. Absolutely.
But you mentioned the historic photos, and I just wanted to ask you about your grandfather, Cal Olson, was a photographer for the Forum, and he took the photos, a lot of photos of that historic 1957 Fargo tornado.
Yeah, June 20th, 1957, the north side of Fargo was hit by what would later be at the top of the Fujita scale of damage, the F5 tornado. Late afternoon, early evening, it pretty much decimated what is now known as the Golden Ridge area up north, and tore through kind of by up north in the Convent, going east towards North Moorhead. And then there was aside from being very historic, that for Fargo, that tornado was on the tail end of some research that went into the Fujita scale of damage being 0 to 5, 5 being the worst, 0 being pretty minimal, to what we use to rate tornadoes now.
Okay, wow. Well, I just want to let everybody know that we do have the book that was done by the folks at NDSU, put together with a lot of photos from his work. So, did that influence you, do you think? Or, I mean, you'd said that
I think,
that was in your mind.
Right, I think it was a large part of that, actually. There was, I remember being very young and having an interest in tornadoes, and then my grandma and grandpa showing me these photos and seeing some photos that probably were never published.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So I got to, and I just remember, when you're a kid, how you remember things is so visual and just, like, I remember the smell of their basement and everything going down, and just seeing these old photos and how like big that thing was.
Okay.
And then even recognizing parts like, oh yeah, that's Hector Field, that's the airport, and that had a lot to do with I think my fascination of it, and then the tornado siren was like right outside my grandparents' house, so like there was just a lot of like synthesis with all this all these new experiences around us. So I think a lot of that had a lot to do with how I was pretty much obsessed from then on, honestly. I mean, and that kind of grew into today, basically.
How did you pursue that then? What did you have to learn, and how did you go about that?
Well, so I started chasing professionally, I guess you could say, about 6-7 years ago, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Before that, I'd always try. I mean, ever since I could legally drive, if there was a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning within the area, I'd try to go see it. But back then, of course, we didn't have the technology we do today that makes it so easy. Back then, we just had the weather repeater on AM. I think it was 1660 AM radio up here, or 1610, and just to hear where it was, and then just like drive towards the dark spot in the sky and hope. Mm-hmm. We never saw anything. And then later on, as technology advanced, you could see radar pictures on your smartphones. And now what I have is pretty much, it's like a mobile weather office. But I think as a young age, I'd try to go see stuff. When I started really taking it seriously, though, I would. It took a lot of studying, honestly. It took a lot of studying of basics of meteorology, just to kind of like know how to read the weather models, which there are many sources online on the internet. You can just go look at these things. Sure. And see the same basic things the National Weather Service and forecast meteorologists will look at to, predict the weather. So I guess I learned enough to kind of get myself within a 50 to 70 mile radius of where things may or may not happen.
Okay.
So that being said, I don't really consider myself a forecaster. A meteorologist have to go to many years of school and training and master's degree, and some are even PhDs to be able to nail down probabilities to how they do. But I know just enough to kind of get there.
Well, that's awesome that you're self-taught and you're doing this and going all over. Do you go all over North Dakota or
I go
Minnesota?
all over the central United States, really.
Okay.
I've gone as far as Kansas a couple times, actually. I have not left Kansas with anything yet, though, unfortunately.
Okay.
But you think Kansas, well, surely you're no. Didn't happen. I've been to Nebraska, Colorado, South Dakota. South Dakota is actually one of my favorite states to go.
Okay.
North Dakota, yeah, I've been to every corner of North Dakota chasing storms. We were in the Badlands, out by Medora. I've been up to the northwest and the oil parts. I've been way south where it turns into South Dakota, and then just the plains of the east.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you report back to anybody, any of the meteorologists?
Yeah. So, aside from going out and filming what I can see, my first priority out there is if I do see something that needs to be warned, I'll get a hold of the National Weather Service like that. And I either call them or I actually have an app that I can just click submit report, and then that'll say, it brings in my GPS location, so I can say what I'm seeing, where I'm seeing it, and et cetera. So the National Weather Service can actually see that.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I feel like it's just better and quicker to call them and say, hey, here's my name, my location is this, and they can see my location in relation to the storm and stuff. And, so that way, that helps get the warning out. So if I'm out in, let's say I'm 30 miles east or west of Valley City and I see a tornado drop down, I can get a hold of them and say, hey, yeah, this is real, and
Sure.
They'll warn it anyway. But if a person like me is out there and sees it, then the term confirmed tornado, so then the warning level upticks a little bit. Hey, this isn't just some rotation on the radar we're seeing, this is an actual tornado that is happening. So
Sure.
yeah.
So have you had any close calls, or do you have any, I know it can be a dangerous, obviously, occupation. What kind of experiences have you had?
Man, yes. I've been in some dangerous spots before. Sometimes you end up being chased. It just kind of works out that way. And not on purpose, you know. I mean, I generally try to stay in a safe direction from it, and generally stay behind it. Sometimes the layout or the morphology of the storm switches, and it's not a typical supercell. Sometimes you get these tornadoes out of a big line, and actually fairly recently I had to kind of hightail it away from what we call a bookend vortex. When you see this big line on the radar as it goes forward, sometimes up at the top or the bottom, just how the wind is pushing it, sometimes there's a little bit of backspin, and then that lift that is lifting the thunderstorm tilts it up, and so I could only see that. Mind you, it's raining really hard, and I can't really see anything.
Sure.
But the only reason I knew it was there is because on my radar you could see the rotation couplet, which is usually a color combo of red versus green. Green being going towards the radar energy, and then red being the energy going away from the radar, which indicates rotation. That got very tight and bright, pretty much right behind me, and I had no choice other than to, I was in Four Bears Lake, I had no choice with the hightail across Lake Sakakawea to Newtown with it pretty much right on me. So yeah, there's been some very close calls, and a lot of the times, you know, it's not what was most dangerous about storm chasing. I think it isn't necessarily being in close proximity to the tornado, because more often than not, that's where my situational awareness is at its height, and you know, I'm not trying to get too close. But the most dangerous part is driving in bad conditions with heavy wind and hail, where the visibility is not good. That's where it's the most dangerous, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
And does your family worry about you the whole time you're gone?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you know, I've been doing it long enough that I think my wife is fairly comfortable with, you know, my abilities. My mother, on the other hand, she's just no, not too keen on it, I guess. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you see yourself doing this for a lot of years?
Oh
to come?
yeah, I'll be trying to do this for like forever. I mean, it's really hard to put into words just being at the doorstep of Mother Nature's, arguably what's Mother Nature's most powerful force. And it's majestic, it's beautiful, it's terrifying, all at the same time. You know, I feel like they have almost their own presence, and that's really the best way I can put it. There's something about being out there, like, all alone, and you staring up at this big thing.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you too, when you were talking about traveling, do you meet a lot of other storm chasers along the way? Do you have kind of like a friendship with them?
Yeah, I've met some great friends with going along with this. Yeah. So I actually started a while ago. We were going to have a little chase group called Northern Plains Chasers, and I actually expanded out. There's like 6 of us now.
Oh.
Yeah, we all have the same passion of going out and seeing severe weather, and yeah, I mean, some of them. One of them lives out in western North Dakota, and he goes out like he goes out all the time and chases storms, and we nicknamed him Storm Hog because the southwest North Dakota is like, not many people know this, but there are many supercells on a regular basis that pop up out there, and I think it has a lot to do with what we call orographic forcing, meaning the geography, the hills. If a front's going to go through, there's something magic that happens. It gets things going out there. And, you know, they're often very picturesque. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I know that you have a Facebook page. I found you that way. And you have some great video on there of some of your travels.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
if people are interested in learning more about that, it's Ryan.
Just Ryan Mauk, Storm Chaser.
Storm Chaser,
all
okay.
one word. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then you also have a film or a video that you did that's available on Amazon Prime. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I mean, before I really started getting really serious about storm chasing, I've been a filmmaker for, about a decade, and that all started because I used to have musical endeavors that I was getting ducked and dodged by the video guy all the time, and I just like, okay, I'm just going to do it myself. That spawned an entire new love, and so I wanted to kind of put that into like what I do. So I kind of decided to put together a reel of events that happened over about 2 or 3 year span, concerning chasing storms and chasing tornadoes and stuff, and kind of the real life, what it actually is. I think a lot of people, when they hear the word storm chaser, they assume maybe that it's just this nonstop, heart pounding, like there's a tornado here, there's a tornado there, and then woo, it's actually a lot of driving, a lot of busting, as we call it, or a lot of disappointment, a lot of nothing happening, flat tires, bad food, weird gas stations, like creepy little towns in the middle of Nebraska, a lot of that, a lot of not so fun and exciting things for maybe 2 hours of excitement, and then you drive all the way home for like 13 hours. I wanted to really kind of give like a real life, like this is what it is actually like. Believe it or not, it's not like a lot of the doc series you see on TV or movies like Twister or Into the Storm. It's actually a lot of us, the majority of us, are everyday people with everyday jobs, and then every chance we can, by God, we're trying to go out there and get something. So that's really what it is. So I wanted to really highlight that to give people a real life look at what it is to be a storm chaser, and so it highlights that there are, of course, a lot of footage of some of my best storms I've encountered, and yeah.
Okay. Well, great. So people can find that on Amazon Prime if they're
Yeah.
subscribers, and,
Yep.
and check out Ryan's experiences. I also wanted to talk to you about tornadoes in general, and so I've got a tornado tube here, and thought that we could use that as a kind of a demonstration.
Oh yeah, definitely. So basically, what makes a thunderstorm happen is warm, moist air at the bottom, at the ground, and then up here and way up in the sky is very cold, dry air. That creates what we call lift. So that's the first ingredient we need. So when you have a thunderstorm, it's rising up way in the sky. Sometimes you see out in the distance, there's this big thunderhead that reaches up into the heavens. Underneath there is this thunderstorm's going through, and it starts to kind of roll like that. There's air going down with the rain, and then there's air coming back up with the lift, and there's this cycle. Sometimes some of that air gets way up there where it's really cold up in the sky and freezes, and then it falls down to the earth as hail. Now, the stronger this updraft is, sometimes the higher up that ice can go, like a washing machine, and just gets coated with more rain and water up there and gets even bigger and bigger until it finally gets enough weight that it falls down. So oftentimes, the bigger the hailstone, the stronger the storm is kind of the unofficial rule. Meanwhile, as this storm is rolling through, sometimes that lift will get so strong it'll actually turn that spinning up on its side, and then you have finally a tornado. Let's see if I can get this thing to go here. Sometimes it just needs a little encouragement, and then finally it finds this escape. And think of this as here's up top and this is the bottom, and finally it punches through there.
And there are different kinds of tornadoes, as I understand, as well.
Yeah.
Now this would be what?
This
maybe
would I'd probably call that a rope.
Okay.
Maybe an elephant trunk, as we call it. But yeah, finally you see the vortex there, it's spinning. So what's happening there? And again, in reverse, think of this as like you're looking at a storm upside down. It's that warm air is finally finding a way to punch through and lift up. So what happens at the bottom, this downdraft coming down from the back end of the storm, it's often kind of warm, hits the ground, or cold I should say, hits the ground, while this warm inflow coming into the storm, eventually as that roll starts to tilt up like that from the lift of the storm, the warm air will come in around here as that cool air is coming down, and then that is what actually feeds and grows the tornado. So you'll see oftentimes on the radar picture, the meteorologists will talk about a hook echo. What that looks like on the radar is there's a very pronounced like hook or comma shape, and what you're actually seeing is that process I just described, that rear flank downdraft that's coming around and eventually meeting up with that warm inflow that's helping it lift, and these kind of interact, and there you go. That's your tornado. So yeah, there's different types of tornadoes. We have what we call a rope or an elephant trunk. We have a stovepipe, which is more of a stout. And then we have the wedge, which is wider than it is tall. Generally, those are violent tornadoes, and the worst kind you can possibly have, that often do some really bad damage.
Sure.
To a lot of things, like take foundations, or take homes down to their foundations and debark trees, and sometimes they've even been known to scour asphalt off of roads, even. They're so strong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of books here at the Fargo Public Library that just talk about what Ryan is describing, and we've got some children's books here that you can see if you're wanting to learn more. We also have some books on storm chasing, and we have some, those are primarily nonfiction. We also have some fiction books on tornadoes as well. So you're welcome to come to the library and check those out if you are interested in learning, going deeper and learning more about tornadoes and storms and storm chasing. While I have Ryan here, I asked if we could also see his car, especially outfitted vehicle that he takes out, and some of the equipment that he uses to find the storms and to report the storms. So we are going to go outside actually to check that out next. So this is the vehicle. I noticed that it's got a different kind of a texture on the outside. Can you tell us to start with that?
So this is actually material called Linex. Is similar to what they put in a lot of bed liners for pickups and stuff to prevent any damage and wear and tear. It's kind of a rubberized plastic. So they put it on really, really thick on all the edges, as thick as possible there, and especially up top. What this does is help protect the shell of the vehicle from hail or small debris. It still will dent, just not as bad. I do have some souvenirs up top from some 4-inch hail I got in South Dakota, but it only left a little bit of a dent compared to what would have been if it hadn't been on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is this the vehicle you've had all along, or did you start off with a...
No, I've had this for 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. I started out with a Ford Taurus that was just destroyed.
Oh.
Every panel on that car was dented. I lost glass multiple times.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure. Did you do this yourself, or do you have to take it to a specialist?
No, I brought this to a special special installer that installed it all.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, could we see some of your special equipment that you use inside?
So basically, this is the cab of where I chase. I have a pretty decent cinema camera that I can pan all the way around and go all the way out the window like that. I can go out the window that way, and even the fun part is I can take it off and put it on a tripod out in the field if I want to just sit there for a while. I also can stream live on here with a wireless setup, transmitting from here, going to this receiver, and then into my computer, so I can stream live on Facebook and other mediums as well. All while wirelessly, so I can still bring this out in the tripod out in the field, and still the viewers are still seeing what I'm actually filming. Because before I would have 2 different cameras, one for streaming, one for filming, and I just got tired of it and I just wanted it all one one thing to be all combined, basically. Over here, this is my laptop that I use primarily for radar. This is a program called Gibson Ridge, which is actually very similar to what the it is actually what the National Weather Service uses to monitor all the radar data. We're actually going off the Grand Forks site up in Mayville right now. And in here, so you have the GPS location. You can zoom in exactly where I'm at. We're here at the Fargo Public Library. You can see the river over here. There's the whole city. And if I zoom out, you can kind of see where I'm at in relation to the storm that might be here, for example. On this side, we have the reflectivity, just basically shows the basic shape of the storm. Over here on this window, we have velocity. So this is how I see if a certain part of the storm is spinning. You might look in here and see some red versus green. It might give an idea maybe a tornadic circulation is forming. Over here, this is what I use to navigate while I'm out in the field. Around North Dakota, I know my way around pretty well, and I rarely have to use this thing. But say out in, South Dakota or in Nebraska, let's say I see a storm on here that's south of me a little bit near a certain town, and I know if I get in front of it, maybe south of Park Rapids per se, I'm going to be in a good spot. So I'll just find Park Rapids on the map here. Where is the Park Rapids? There it is, and I'll just drop my pin, and it'll just navigate me right towards it. So that way I don't have to worry. So that way I just have to look at the map briefly, follow the directions, and get to my storm. And then when I'm out in the middle of wherever, let's say I'm in the middle of Nebraska and it's time to go home, I can just set a pin for Fargo, North Dakota, and wherever I am, it'll steer me home. So this is kind of the whole setup of what I got going on in here. I got a mount to mount the laptop up here, pretty robust tripod, and then and then in back. So in the back of the vehicle, I have an extra tripod. I have a couple other tripods for a slider I use for taking time lapse, and it's motorized, so that way I can program the camera to move a certain amount and shape over a certain amount of time. I use that to kind of get some cool dynamic shots of like lightning or clouds growing and stuff. Yeah, and then if worse comes to worse, I can always sleep back here if I'm just too tired to carry on the road there. But
So does it have any special safety equipment for you if you get caught up in anything, or just?
Not really. I just, if worse comes to worse, I'll make sure I can get out of the vehicle safely. Like that instance I was talking about earlier where I was getting chased in the heavy rain. I had to go over that bridge. I had to roll my window down actually just in case I got thrown off the bridge into the water, I could swim out. Because oftentimes, if you have your windows up, that's when people get hurt because there's too much pressure and they can't bust out.
Oh, sure. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this has really been fascinating, Ryan. Thank you so much for
Oh,
coming
you're sure
by.
welcome. I'm glad to be by for sure.
Yeah. Well, I also want to let the kids know that if you would like your very own tornado tube that you saw Ryan demonstrate the rope tornado in the bottles,
Yeah.
we have those available here at the Fargo Public Library. Just come to the main library children's desk and say that you saw this video and you would like your own tornado tube, and we will make sure you have one.
Yeah.
Of course, that's while supplies last
While
and
supplies
one per
last, yeah.
child. So I think that's all we have for today. Thank you again.
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet.